In a Nuzlocke, any Pokemon that faints is gone forever, and this is part 2 of the hardest Pokemon Violet Nuzlocke I've ever done only using Gen 1 Pokemon. If you didn't watch my first video, I highly recommend seeing how I pulled off a Hyper Beam to KO Iono's ace using a Rhydon, Bulbasaur sucking up to be the favorite, and the redemption arc of Ganon the Blastoise. As well as many... and some other elite strategies I put together. And as for this episode, we're going to see some double battles that aren't usually seen before, and hopefully I'll use your favorite Pokemon in a battle from 30 years ago. So for this Nuzlocke, we start off with the Titan Orthworm. And as hard as this Nuzlocke is, I don't think I'll ever struggle with this battle. Although he is immune to ground moves with his Earth Eater ability and has the defense of a tank, he is quite weak on the special side. In fact, he has a worse special defense than Ditto, a Pokemon with a base stat total of 288. Let that sink in. So this allows Impa the Ninetales to finish the first phase in one move. The second phase is a bit cheekier since the first Flamethrower doesn't do nearly as much damage after his stat boost and his Aqua Berry, and his Earthquake also does way more damage than I was expecting. It's a bit difficult to calc the range to see if we'd get the range or not since he's a Titan, but we risk it for the biscuit, and it pays off, and Impa finishes both phases of the Titan in just 3 turns. Now that that's over with, it's time to take on a specialist that Gen 1ers should be very familiar with. Atticus, the Team Star Poison Leader. Gen 1 introduced 33 Poison-type Pokemon to the franchise, which is the most Pokemon of a single type introduced in any generation, but is also the type that has added the least amount of Pokemon to its typing since it debuted almost 30 years ago. But the good news for us is that Poison isn't the greatest offensive or defensive typing, and Gen 1 gave us plenty of ground types to counter it, along with arguably the best attacking move in the game, Earthquake. With its 100 base power and no drawback, it hits 5 of the 18 types for super effective damage, only has 2 resistances, 1 immunity, and hits the other 10 types for neutral damage. And Atticus is about to learn what Diglett is hiding in that hole. Our newly evolved Urbosa the Dugtrio starts the match with his Clodsire, and she's here to quake his boots and chew some bubblegum. And she's all out of bubblegum. While holding the Choice Band, Dugtrio's attack is boosted by 50%, effectively making Earthquake's 150 base power. And with its extra increase in damage, not a single one of Atticus's Pokemon survive a hit. Not even his Toxtricities. Toxtricity? I don't know. But this combo is extremely effective because of how fast she is, and admittedly we do need to outspeed and one-shot everything because of how poor Dugtrio's bulk is. I mean, one hit and she's gone. Even a Bulbasaur can get a one-shot with a Razor Leaf. But good thing she's fast and powerful, because as soon as Atticus's Ribombrim comes out, he goes right back down to a quad-effective stab Earthquake. I guess the added steel type isn't doing the Starmobiles any favors, and honestly this is my first time ever using a Dugtrio before. Not bad, may have to do it again. And the next stop on our journey is the town of Medali, where normally this battle is a single battle.
Oh brother, this guy stinks!
And this is a pretty tough stretch of the game because not only are we needing to face Larry in a double battle, but we also need to fight Nemona immediately afterwards without changing our party. So that's 12 Pokemon we'll need to face off against back to back, and we only get to use 6 Pokemon. And if any of them faint in the first battle, of course we won't be able to use them again in the second battle. So we need to make some preparations, and the first thing we do is go out and catch Suga the Magmar, who is amazing in double battles with redirection moves like Follow Me and his ability Vital Spirit. We also pay our respects to the great Deku Tree to add yet another grass type to the team, and then we head into town to hit up everyone's favorite dojo to get our kicking machine back for this fight. So Larry begins the battle with Arboliva and Oinkologne as I send out our newly acquired Suga and Ravio. Suga starts by using Follow Me as the pig tries to make him drowsy, but Vital Spirit prevents him from falling asleep. And Ravio uses Taunt to prevent Arboliva from using Leech Seed, but she just tried to use Sunny Day. Oh well. The next turn, Ravio uses a Roundhouse to the face to KO Oinkologne, and Suga uses another Follow Me as Arboliva switches up her game and uses Facade. I'm trying to get Magmar to take all the damage because he is bulkier than Hitmonlee, especially while holding the Eevee Light. So now Weirdeer comes out and gets off an Intimidate, but of course become prepared with a Wide Herb that negates the attack drop. With his Psychic typing, he is a big threat to Hitmonlee, so we need to get rid of him immediately. So Magmar uses Helping Hand to boost Hitmonlee's high jump kick even further, and he's able to one-hit KO the Weirdeer. And Arboliva is desperately trying to do some damage with Weather Ball. Good job, Arboliva, you're doing great. So now Larry sends out his Overweight Squirrel, and it's time for both Pokemon to go on the offense. So Suga uses Flamethrower on Arboliva for some pretty big damage that I really thought was going to KO honestly, and Ravio gets yet another one-hit KO with high jump kick. This move is busted honestly. Now Larry sends out his penultimate Pokemon, and he's got a real problem. Although Blissey is extremely tanky on the special side, her physical defense is probably the worst of any Pokemon. So she easily goes down to a high jump kick, and Suga gets to take his first KO of the fight and finish off the Arboliva with a Flamethrower. And now it's Larry's ace, the Dunsparce. But I guess he was way more scared of us than we were of him, and with one last turn, Magmar helps his ally go straight into the air, and Ravio can land the final high jump kick to defeat Larry and get us our 4th gym badge. Hitmonlee did great in this battle, but I'm concerned the amount of KOs he's racking up is starting to go to his head.
Take a look at what I'm wearing, people. Do you think anybody wants a roundhouse kick to the face while I'm wearing these bad boys? Forget about it.
But we don't have time to deal with this because Gita is forcing us to fight Nemona. Do all champions have 6 sadistic tendencies? I guess so. Usually I pride myself on smooth, well-planned battles, but this wasn't that at all. I've played this game a few times now and found that Nemona has this habit of switching into her dancing duck whenever you use a fire type move. So I try to plan a few steps ahead and set up the sun for Venusaur to come out to take advantage of his chlorophyll ability and 1-turn solar beams. But it doesn't go nearly how I planned, and instead I just get confused. And wouldn't you know it, as soon as I switch out to Hitmonlee to avoid confusion shenanigans, look who Nemona switches into. The 1000 IQ play to bring in her water type on a grass type. But now I'm kind of in a pickle and just have to throw my plan away and steer a little. No, Blastoise, chill out. We start off with a high jump kick which does huge damage, and he retaliates with a low sweep that lowers my speed. This would normally be a big deal and allow him to outspeed and possibly KO me, but luckily we still have the wider Batach to shake off the speed drop, so this allows us to attack first again and take yet another KO. Now Tauros comes out to get off and intimidate, and I do fear losing my kicking machine, so I make the switch to the Deku tree on a resisted Raging Bull. On the next turn, Tauros sets up with Work Up to raise both of his attack stats, and then the Deku tree just tries to suck him dry. And now, Exeggutor shows why I hate dealing with confusion shenanigans. Not only does he hit himself in confusion 2 turns in a row, which is a 10% chance by the way, but how does a psychic type lose to a fighting type? Whatever, so Zelda comes in to show him how it's done and takes the KO with a flamethrower. And now that thick boy Colossal comes out, and since I don't want to lose Zelda to a rock move, I switch to Ganon, and I think we all know what time it is. Yup, Shell Smash Wide Herb time. And after taking a pitiful flame charge, Ganon goes crazy and gets the KO with a quad effective Surf and takes down her Pissimia in the same way too. But now the real thick boy comes out, Hisuian Gudra, who happens to actually survive an Aura Sphere, but Blastoise shows him who's even thicker.
Big man Blastoise, big man Blastoise.
And then the beaten and battered Bronzong comes out, who easily falls to another Surf. We escape Nemona this time, but I'm not sure that's going to be how it goes every single time. Fun fact, Blastoise has only made 2 appearances in this run and is already our leader in KOs at the moment. And with Nemona taken care of, it's time to head over to Alfornada to take on the Psychic type leader Tulip. The Psychic type is one of the most overpowered types in Gen 1. You might already know this, but the Psychic type virtually had no weaknesses. Yeah, there was the Bug and Ghost type, but neither type was very good. Psychic types were actually programmed to be immune to Ghost type moves, and even if it was super effective, the best move in the game was just Lick, at a very low 20 base power. And the only Ghost type Pokemon in Gen 1 were also weak to Psychic type Pokemon, making it an ineffective matchup. And the best Bug type moves was either Twin Needle or Pin Missile, neither of which are very impressive. And the only 2 Pokemon that learned it was either weak to Psychic itself or just had better options to use. And you'd think it'd get better over time, but no Gen 1 Pokemon can effectively counter Psychic types, especially without the absence of any Dark types. So we really had to think outside the box for this fight. So the first thing we did was find the 3 thickest boys that we could. We evolved Munchlax into Snorlax for a monstrous Pokemon with very impressive special bulk, and then evolved our Slowpoke to give us a Psychic type resistance. We also found a Dragonair and evolved him into Dragonite with the level cap being so high, to make use of a very unique strategy I'm confident that you've never seen before. So Tulip starts the battle with her Farigiraf and Espeon as I send out Sidon and Chew. Espeon gets up the Psychic terrain like she always does, and Dragonite uses Fling to KO Farigiraf. Fling is a Dark type move that has a varying base power depending on what item you throw at the target, and since we're rolling in the dough, we're flinging money at Tulip's Pokemon. It was the only move I could find to OHKO that bulky giraffe to prevent him from using Uproar, which is important since my plan revolves around Slowbro using Yawn on Espeon. Dragonite's done, so I send in the thickest boy of all, and Espeon uses Psych Up to copy nobody's stat boost? I don't know. And after a soft Dazzling Gleam, Slowbro yawns the Espathra so both Pokemon will be asleep at the end of next turn. After another soft Dazzling Gleam and Espeon's first guaranteed turn of sleep, Snorlax uses Belly Drum to max his attack along with a Figgy Berry to recover some of the HP he lost, and Slowbro sets up Trick Room, so now the thickest Pokemon get to move first. With both of Tulip's Pokemon asleep, the sweep can now begin. Snorlax only knows 2 moves, the second being Last Resort, which has an incredible 140 base power, but the drawback that it can only be used if every other move has been used in battle as well. Needless to say, this along with Belly Drum is more than enough to KO Espeon, and Slowbro can use Scald to do some damage to Espathra. I don't want to take a KO for a reason you'll see in just a moment. With Delphox coming out, we're in a position to KO both both of Tulip's Pokemon with the Last Resort and Fling respectively. This leaves Tulip's Ace in a 2-on-1 battle against my Pokemon. Although I have a significant advantage, this didn't work out exactly how I wanted because Snorlax learns Giga Impact mid-battle, which means I have to use it, otherwise Last Resort will fail. And I get a bit hesitant when using moves that aren't 100% accurate because they're really only 50% accurate, but nonetheless, Snorlax clutches up and hits the 90% accurate move to defeat Tulip in yet another deathless gym battle. Please leave a comment below and let me know if you've used that strat before. So now we've acquired 6 gym badges, and even though we just fought Nemona, here we go again, needing to defeat her for the 4th time this run. And in my opinion, this is her toughest team yet. She has a pseudo-legendary, competitive items, and a well-rounded team that don't have any overlap. So we definitely need to make a few preparations before this fight. So we evolve our Haunter into his final form and then catch a Lapras from the Blueberry Academy. And after some EV training and theory crafting, we're ready to face Nemona in our most difficult battle yet. She leads Lucario and I lead Zelda the Charizard. Zelda is holding the choice specs to guarantee the one-hit KO not only on her Lucario, but also her Rabsca who comes out next. Seems kinda odd to send in a bug type against a fire type, but I guess she does actually see the KO with a quad effective power gem. But anyway, Luxray comes out next and we need to switch so we don't take an electric move. So we switch out to Dugtrio who should be immune, but Luxray just goes for Scary Face. I was honestly hoping to get in for free on an electric type move, but Nemona actually seems to be cooking because her Scary Face lowers our speed so much that Luxray outspeeds and gets off a massive crunch that would have definitely gotten the KO if it crit. And then we retaliate with an Earthquake. Armarouge comes out next and I'm fearing an Armor Cannon, so I switch into Yunobo who takes it decently well with his massive special bulk. This procs Armarouge's eject pack and then she brings out Garchomp of all things. And on the next turn he hits us with a pretty powerful Dragon Claw before our Figgy Berry heals us a bit. Yunobo counters this with a Body Slam that actually gets the para, but I did forget about his Rough Skin ability and we do take a little bit of extra damage. I feel like I can stay in for at least one more turn with the bit of recovery we just got, but Garchomp smacks us down to just 3 HP with the Facade. I can't believe she actually has this move. For those of you that don't know, this move doubles in power if you have a status condition, but good thing I used Earthquake this turn because Snorlax would have been a goner and finished off by the Rough Skin ability if I used Body Slam again. Now I definitely know I can't stay in, so I switch into Gengar hoping for another Facade, and it works and we get in for free. And then the next turn we can outspeed and end that thing with a Dazzling Gleam. That thing was a monster, and I hope I never see it again. Now Armarouge comes back out, but Gengar can just take the KO with a Shadow Oh no. Oh no. Just kidding, he's wearing a Focus Sash, so he's always safe to stay in and take the KO on the next turn with another Shadow Ball. Her last Pokemon is her Dancing Duck, and I'm hoping we're baiting some type of a water move after she Terastalizes, so we try to take advantage of Lana's Water Absorb ability. And it works, and we come in for free. And instead of going for an attack on the next turn, he just uses Work Up, so we use Freeze Dry to get off some super effective damage, which actually gets the freeze! I'm a little disappointed by this because I had this really cool strategy where Lana would be able to take a close combat because she's holding a Chople Berry, and then the defense drops would allow us to take a one-hit KO with a Freeze Dry, but this works out just as good too, I guess. A couple of close calls, but we managed to escape Nemona and her Dancing Duck yet again to pull off another deathless fight. But the next fight is a little difficult. It's another type that Gen 1 Pokemon have a hard time dealing with. Ghost is only weak to Dark and Ghost types. I already talked about how Gen 1 doesn't have any Dark types, but Ghost being super effective only to itself makes this fight a bit risky to use Gengar. And I don't want to lose my precious Gengar, but we're already here and I came up with a nifty little strategy with the Pokemon already in our party.
You can do it!
So Ryme leads with Gengar and Bayonet as I lead with my water type duo, Blastoise and Lapras. Look at this stupid Citadel, it threw off my groove.
No! You threw off my groove!
Gengar starts off with a pretty strong Shadow Ball, and then the strategy begins. Ganon starts off with his signature Shell Smash and Wider combo that we've been so accustomed to. And Lapras takes the support role by using Life Dew to keep both Pokemon healthy, and Bayonet just vanishes on a Phantom Force, making this strategy even easier. On the next turn, Blastoise is now the fastest Pokemon in the field, and takes a KO on Gengar with a Hydro Pump, and I absolutely love that Game Freak made use of his cannons. Lapras increases the power of Ganon's water moves even more by using Rain Dance, and then Bayonet uses Phantom Force on Blastoise that did way more damage than I was expecting. But little did Ryme know that this was the last time she would touch my Pokemon. We get an attack boost from the crowd as Hisuian Typhlosion comes out, and now none of Ryme's Pokemon stand a chance against a stab +3 Helping Hand boosted Surf from Blastoise that not only KOs both opponents but also gets Lapras some HP back as well from her Water Absorb ability. We get another attack boost from the crowd as Houndstone and Frostlass come out, but to nobody's surprise they both go down to a stab +4 Helping Hand boosted Surf in the rain. And and now the crowd is absolutely loving Blastoise.
Big man Blastoise.
Toxtricity is Ryme's last Pokemon, but Ganon has spiraled too far out of control at this point. And with another Helping Hand boost, he knocks out Toxtricity with his signature move, Hydro Cannon. It's crazy to see the stat multipliers, knowing that this would have KO'd Toxtricity 6 times over. That was probably one of the easier gym battles in the game, especially from all the stat boosts you can get from the crowd. But the next fight isn't as easy. We need to face down the Fairy Team Star leader Ortega. And I know I already discussed how many poison types are from Kanto, but it's not like many of them are doing all that great and competitive. Like, what is that thing? So what I decided to do for this fight is use some Team Rocket Pokemon. That's right, we're going to be using and although these Pokemon are definitely iconic in their own right, it's not like they have the best stats. But as always, after taking down the fairy base, I came up with a strategy that would even make your mom want to play Pokemon.
What?
I don't know, so we starts off with a huge power Azumarill, and I lead with Epona the Arbok. Of course this thing is threatening because its attack is doubled, but our Intimidate not only lowers this thing's attack, but also switches him out because of its held eject pack. This allows for the much less threatening Wigglytuff to come out. I start with a Coil to raise my attack, defense, and accuracy for a certain move I'll show in a second. And Wigglytuff uses Stockpile to increase both of her defenses, and I'm making use of one of my favorite items again, the Mirror Herb, to steal both of her defense boosts. With my defenses doubled and improved accuracy, I can now fire off a perfectly accurate stab, super effective gunk shot for the one-hit KO. This sends Darkspun out, and I was a bit concerned that he would use Roar to send me out and get rid of my stat boost, but she just uses a pointless workup before Arbok throws up all over her. Azumarill comes back out now, and I guess I got cocky and went for another Coil, I don't know, but it pays off since we take a pretty soft play rough before removing him with another gunk shot. Klefki is the next victim, and I'm not threatened by this thing at all, so I use yet another Coil before taking another soft play rough and then using Earthquake for another one-hit KO. Probably the most threatening Pokemon in this fight comes out next, and it's Mimikyu. It's threatening because we need to hit him twice before taking him out because of the disguise ability. We only take 2 soft play roughs before he goes down, and now that big dog is out, the Fairy Starmobile. If this was vanilla Pokemon Violet, I would definitely just use Gunk Shot to probably one-hit KO this thing, but because of the added Steel type, I need to use Earthquake instead, which still does some pretty good damage, but I did think it'd be a bit more with all the coils we just used. And the other reason we needed to use the Mirror Herb is to steal some defense boost, because I wanted to be able to stay in for at least 2 turns to get off some damage before needing to switch because of the high horsepower. But it does get to the point where Arbok needs to tag in her teammate Weezing to come in for free on a high horsepower that doesn't affect us with our Levitate ability. And I'll be honest, I really did expect more from Weezing, especially because he's wearing the choice specs, but it takes 3 full turns to finally bring this thing down with flamethrowers after a few spinouts allow us to outspeed. And now
Team Rocket's blasting off again!
So now we're nearing the end game, and there's only one Team Star leader left, Aerie, and she is always the toughest battle in any run. If you haven't seen my last run and feel like clenching your cheeks a little bit, go ahead and check it out because it was a crazy finish. No spoilers, but her fighting Starmobile only has 2 weaknesses, being a fighting and steel type, and her ability Scrappy allows her to hit ghost Pokemon with normal and fighting moves, so there's really no cheesing this fight. After some careful planning and theory crafting, it's time to give this fight a go. She leads with Annihilate, and I lead with Hestu, the Pikachu. Pikachu's only job is to get some damage off with Volt Switch and switch into Gengar to ensure that I don't lose a Pokemon to Final Gambit. This chip damage allows Gengar to get in for free and get the range with Psychic. This baits out Hariyama because he sees a KO with knockoff, so he switched to Scyther, who isn't holding an item, to take reduced damage. Since we're not holding an item, Acrobatics doubles in power and allows us to take the one-hit KO. Palmot is out next because he sees a KO with Thunder Punch, but we're able to outspeed and do just a bit of chip damage with a U-turn to bring Gentle Dude in for free. We always survive a close combat due to our Sturdy ability, and this allows us to take the KO with an Earthquake. Phalanx comes out next, and here's where I just didn't know what to do, so I did the only thing I knew would work. Tulip is holding a Custap Berry, which activates when at low HP to be able to use one move before your opponent, and he makes the ultimate sacrifice to get the... Are you kidding me? How does he survive on 1 HP? I am so tired of this. But after looking at the calc, I guess it was a 50-50 shot, but his sacrifice was meant for nothing. Oh well, the plan must continue. So Gengar comes back in, and Phalanx doesn't have any moves to touch him. So not only do we get to set up the substitute, there's my throwback to Gen 1 this fight, but we can set up 3 nasty plots to get us to +6 special attack. This allows us to use Psychic to take the KO not only on Phalanx, but also her Hawlucha, who comes in next. The original plan was to set up on Hawlucha since he can't hit me either, but this worked just fine as well. But now, it's time for the Fighting Starmobile. We do have the sub up, so we're always safe to use Psychic, and this reveals that it's going to be at least a 4-shot. But then Aerie just uses Shift Gear to set up a bit. Uh-oh. This does allow us at least one more turn to attack, but she uses Shift Gear again. Alright, getting a bit scary. If she keeps this up, she's gonna sweep my entire team. I neglected to say earlier that Gengar is holding the air balloon because I'm trying to bait a Giga Impact instead of a high horsepower. And it works. She does break the sub with a Giga Impact, but because she has to recharge the next turn, we can take the KO with one final Psychic, and with that, we have defeated every single Team Star member. That was such an incredible fight. It is always a banger when facing Aerie, and I can't wait to do more runs of this game to see what other strategies I can come up with to defeat her. With all the Team Star leaders defeated, it's time to get our last gym badge and defeat the 8th gym leader, Grusha. Wait, no, what is he doing here? Stop following me! Ice has never been a great defensive type. It has 4 weaknesses and only 1 resistance to itself. But there's no way I'm ever going to use an Ice type against an Ice type gym leader, right? Let me know in the comments if you want to see a mono type run. But until then, we start with our sun-setting shiny Ninetales, who's holding the Heat Rock to ensure we get 8 turns of fire boosting, ice melting weather. Ninetales proceeds to sweep almost the entire gym using the sun to her advantage. She gets the one-shot on Glaceon with a flamethrower, and also the one-shot on Titan, which makes me think he doesn't have the thick bat ability. And when Cloyster comes out, he actually would survive a flamethrower, so instead I use a solar beam to KO him, which only takes 1 turn in the sun instead of 2. Frostlass is up next and actually manages to outspeed and do a little bit of damage, but a 65 base power move isn't going to cut it at this level cap. Avalanche is out next and probably has the worst special defense I've ever seen, so probably would go down to just a single hex. Well, I guess after doing the calcs he wouldn't, but either way it's pretty close. But the only Pokemon that is slightly threatening is his ace, Frostmoth. Frostmoth has the ability Ice Scaled, which halves the damage from special attacks, and by Terastalizing into the Ice type, that also decreases damage from fire types. And she actually knows the move Mirror Coat, which inflicts double the damage back to your opponent after taking a special move. Not like I learned how strong that move could be in a previous attempt or anything. So instead, I make the switch to Arcanine, who's holding the Choice Band, and with the sun still up and all these stat multipliers happening, he gets the one shot and gets us our 8th and final gym badge. With all 8 gym badges and every Team Star leader defeated, the only thing left to do is finish off the 3 remaining Titans. With a level cap at 70 for all 3 Titans, there are no pushovers either. We start off by chasing down the giant mecha elephant that's terrorizing the Sato Desert and use Ninetales and her Drought ability again. Iron Treads is similar to Orthworm and has relatively poor special defense compared to its physical defense, so it's easily exploited. Or so I thought. The first phase lasted all of but 1 turn, but the second phase is a bit trickier. The plan was to boost our special attack with Nasty Plot and then baton pass the boost to Venusaur to outspeed with our chlorophyll ability, and then use a sun boosted fire type weather ball for the KO. But that bulldoze makes things a bit more complicated. Not only are we dead to 1 more bulldoze, but I didn't think we'd be slower to begin this phase, so I guess that's just a wasted turn. So we just hard switch to our hero Link to avoid any potential casualties as Arven Scovillain takes the damage for us, revealing that our plan would have been safe, but that biscuit wasn't worth risking it for. So now we do big damage with Weather Ball as Iron Treads KOs the Scovillain with the bulldoze. And even with the speed drop, our hero Link is still faster and is able to outspeed with a super effective Weather Ball to KO the giant elephant and get us 1 step closer to the end game. Just look at Venusaur's lumpy butt. I guess he's happy about it, but that's not going to help us with the next Titan, Dondozo. After swallowing his pal, I'm sure it's no surprise that we're going to be using Ninetales and set up the sun again against this pure water type. Not only does this reduce the damage from its Aqua Tail, so we're always safe to a crit, but it also allows us to end the first phase in only 2 turns. After the fish retreats, we stick with a similar strategy of leading with Ninetales to set up the sun, but this time we're going to be setting up to use a different grass type Pokemon to finish off this big fish. We set up a few nasty plots, and even though we get to use this 3 times, we're only at +4 because Dondozo used Noble Roar a few times to reduce our special attack. And right after the turn we take an order up, we baton pass our boost to the Great Deku Tree. He's rocking the move Psychic Noise, which not only prevents the fish from healing with its leftovers for a few turns, but it also procs our Throat Spray so we get to +5 special attack. And I don't really remember what I was thinking here, but I used Solar Beam after the sunlight fades, so not only does this take 2 turns, but this also means our Chlorophyll ability is no longer active. But we never get punished and get to finish off the Titan with the Solar Beam. Tatsugiri comes out immediately, and I learned from my last round that we do indeed get healed between phases, so Ninetales tries the old nasty plot setup again, but my plans get foiled. Tatsugiri surprisingly outspeeds and launches a nasty water spout before I get the chance to set up anything, so I just need to hard switch to Lana instead, and good thing I did because that water spout would have definitely KO'd my Ninetales. The first thing we do after taking a Dragon Pulse is use Alluring Voice to not only do some super effective damage, but to also activate our Throat Spray again. Lana is dead to a crit Dragon Pulse, but I gotta make some progress, so I stay in, and to my surprise, I just get healed with an Origin Pulse and then use Freeze Dry for some massive damage. And I guess Tatsugiri gave up this turn because he just uses a quad resisted Frost Breath on Lapras, and we get to use a Freeze Dry to finish off the last remaining Titan of our journey. I run over to Arven's house to tell him about all the Titans we defeated, but for some reason, I just can't remember what that conversation was like. All I remember was gazing into someone's beard until I realized that Arven's dog isn't actually bedridden anymore. It'd be a total shame if we spent weeks trying to get someone's dog to feel better and then pulverize them into the ground. I mean, surely Arven's a more responsible dog parent than that, so he leads with Arboliva and Garganacl as I lead with my evolutions Vaporeon and Flareon. Flareon can get the one-hit KO on Arboliva with the Fire Lash and the help of an Expert Belt. This also triggers her Grassy Surge ability, which I'll comment on in just a second, but Vaporeon uses Scald to actually get the burn on Garganacl, just a 30% chance. This, combined with the grassy terrain, actually cuts the damage of Earthquake by 75%, only doing 25% of the damage that he normally would. Flareon digs underground, which in hindsight was actually a pretty poor idea because that would have doubled the damage of Earthquake if he got hit underground, but let's not talk about that because Vaporeon gets yet another burn on Arven's overweight pig, and then they use a few moves to make me feel like I've got some plot armor on for this run. On the next turn I switch out Vaporeon for Jolteon to prepare for some upcoming threats, and Flareon is able to get the KO with Dig on the giant Salt Fang, and the pig tries to play rough with Jolteon, but the Grassy Seed I attached helped raise our defense, and Oinkolone's burn reduces the damage even further. Scovillain comes out and goes right back out to a Rock type Weather Ball, and Flareon drops Oinkolone's defense with a Fire Lash, as he just whiffs the play rough. Darkspawn comes out now, and Jolteon uses a fairly strong Weather Ball, but it looks like it's going to be a 3-hit KO, and then Flareon takes a crunch before he can use a Baton Pass to get Vaporeon in for free without any damage. And then Arven's fat pig is so excited that he actually got to play with Jolteon this time. Weather Ball falls just short of KOing Darkspawn, so he gets to use Thunder Fang on Vaporeon, but luckily it doesn't paralyze. I know, plot armor, right? And Vaporeon sets up the rain to set us up for the end game, but his stupid annoying pig lowers our speed with Bulldoze. Surely that's not gonna matter, right? Thunder finally KOs that annoying dog, and after playing rough with Vaporeon, everyone's dream, am I right? She flip turns to KO the pig and bring out everyone's favorite starter, Eevee. Mabostiff is Arven's last Pokemon, and after he terastalizes into the Dark type, he uses Jaw Lock on Eevee, but thankfully, I attached the Eviolite, see what I did there? So he takes less damage than normal. And then with a Helping Hand boost, Jolteon can take the final KO of the match and allow us to penetrate Arven's house to get to his sexy dad. Wait. What? You're not Arven's sexy dad? I really want to get my hands on Arven's dad, but we gotta go through this old geezer first. So he starts with Poltegeist and Palafin as I lead Pikachu and Gengar. I need to stop the Dolphin from transforming, so he gets faked out as Gengar can KO this Cup of Tea with a Choice Specs boosted Shadow Ball. Wasn't this the same chubby snake that cowered in fear at Larry's gym?
Now he's gonna kick my butt!
Anyway, a Volt Switch KOs Palafin, and I get to reposition by sending out Hitmonlee and Gyarados, who happens to dodge a Drill Run. And everyone's favorite amigo wants to get punished next, so not only does he get faked out the next turn, but he gets frozen by Ice Fang from Gyarados. I'm plot armoring so hard right now. And then my next plan works out perfectly. The Dunsparce sets up a coil, and yup, you guessed it, Hitmonlee is holding the Mirror Herb. So not only do we get an attack and defense boost, but we also get to fire off some perfectly accurate high jump kicks, which KOs the chubby snake on the next turn, and Gyarados can finish off the frozen bird with another Ice Fang. Darkspawn and Skeledirge come out next, which is a pretty scary combo, and I target down the Gator first, who falls to a combination of a high jump kick and waterfall. And then Gyarados gets a little drowsy from a yawn. And then I made a huge blunder. I totally forgot about Darkspawn's well-baked body and targeted him with the Blaze Kick. And I know this is like his whole gimmick, but I accidentally doubled his defenses, so a waterfall does basically nothing now. But at least Darkspawn doesn't have the strongest attack. Gyarados is asleep, so I reposition both Pokemon by switching into Gengar and Baton Passing into Magneton, who takes basically nothing on the switch. And Gengar can take the final KO of this old man's team with a Stab, Choice Specs boosted Sludge Bomb. And finally this old geezer gets out of my way, and I'm clenching onto this message from Arven's dad that told me to meet him outside for a little bit of fun in the schoolyard. Who? But Arven's dad totally catfished me. He tells me to meet him in the courtyard after dark, and it's just Penny? What the fuck? Someone's gotta pay, and it's gonna be Penny and her evolutions. So she leads Umbreon and I lead with Persian. I go for the obligatory fake out, which is boosted a bit by Persian's Technician ability, which flinches her on the first turn, and then I knock off her leftovers. That thing is way too bulky to have passive healing. And then she uses Confuse Ray, but of course I come prepared with the Person Berry. Since we're playing chess and not checkers, I use Taunt to prevent her Confuse Ray, which allows me to U-turn the next turn and bring out Clavell, who now can't get confused. But she does get the accuracy drop from Night Days, so I'm not really sure which one's worse, honestly. But luckily, we don't miss the Moonblast, and all the previous chip damage allows us the range to finally KO her first Pokemon. Flareon is out next and threatening a KO with Flare Blitz, so I switch into my Eviolite holding Rhydon, who takes it very well. Twice, actually, before retaliating with an Earthquake for the Yoko. Vaporeon is out next because she sees the KO with the Quad Effective Surf, but of course we switch to Venusaur to resist. I forgot to teach him Giga Drain for this fight, but we're safe to use the 2-turn Solar Beam as Life Dew just fails for the 1-hit. Oh my gosh, I was so confident that would work. But alas, she uses Life Dew to actually get HP back this time, and Sludge Bomb still doesn't get the KO. But wait, Link does get the poison, and the poison takes her out. The plot armor strikes again. Jolteon is out next and usually likes to set up the electric terrain, so I use this as a free turn to hit an Earth Power for some fairly strong damage before switching into Rhydon for free on a Rising Voltage. Yeah, this does raise our special attack with our Lightning Rod ability, but we're just using a physical attacking set this battle. Kinda unfortunate since we get charmed the next turn, but we still have enough juice for the 1-hit KO with an Earthquake. Penny sends out yet another evolution that threatens quad effective damage, so I switch to Zelda on a grassy terrain and then proceed to take the 1-hit KO with a Stab super effective Flamethrower. And now she comes out. But this is no normal Eevee. No, it's the partner Eevee with some improved stats, the ability Adaptability, and Terastalizes to normal to get an even bigger damage boost to its normal moves. I thought she might have been going for a Giga Impact, so I switched to Gengar, who should have been immune, but she used Teeter Dance to take advantage of my least favorite strategy, Confusion. I don't want to deal with it, so I switched to Hylia on a Charm, and then he proceeds to get confused on the next turn, and hit himself. No big deal, I guess, so we risk it for that juicy biscuit, and after taking a fairly soft Giga Impact that I hyped up so much, I hit myself again. Come on, man, that's like a 9% chance of hitting yourself 2 turns in a row. It's the recharge turn, so I stay in to try to get off some damage, and I finally get off an Earthquake, but I do basically nothing since I just got charmed. Out of frustration, I switched to Gengar, who takes nothing from a Giga Impact. This is what I was trying to do in the first place. And then it takes us 3 full turns of using Sludge Bomb to KO this thing. I know she has boosted stats and probably holding the Eviolite item to become even bulkier, but who would have thought that an Eevee would survive an Earthquake and 3 Sludge Bombs? And we're not taking that much damage to her Psybeams because we're holding the Assault Vest. So after the battle, Penny tells me she has a note from Professor Handsome, or whatever his name is, and it says that if I want to see him without his lab coat, I just need to defeat the Elite Four. Bet, but that's not happening in this video, baby! Subscribe so I can achieve my dreams of petting his beard while he sleeps on my chest, and enjoy the KO counter as I wonder if he uses 2 different shampoos for the hair on his head and the hair on his face. Thanks everybody, see you next time.